Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Cinephila.
Hey, everybody.
The first Cinephila of the year of 2021. We're in a whole different year, and I'm so excited.
It's a whole different year.
whole
Happy
different
New
year.
Year, everybody. Hope it was a good New Year's Eve into New Year's for you.
Yeah, hope everybody said I was safe and had a good time. I know about 50 to 60 of you spent it with us, so I knew you were safe because you were there. But yeah, everybody's doing well. Do you want to start with some news?
Yeah, let's do the news. There's not, Reed H. Cooper is saying there's plenty of news. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of news this week, but I see that Reed H. Cooper is very excited to hear that Tanya Roberts is not dead. There were rumors that she was a Bond actress.
Oh, she's not dead?
She's not dead, it turns out.
Well, so what happened with that? Why was there rumors?
I don't know exactly. I mean, it might just be that thing where every few months we find out that a celebrity we thought was dead is just a rumor, and they like come back and like, no, I'm still around. Reed H. Cooper says her husband thought she died. So,
like her husband that lives with her thought she died,
Yeah.
or is it like a husband?
Reed H. Cooper says she fell asleep. He walked away, didn't ask. See how rumors start.
All right, so I guess probably in the next week we'll get more details on what happened, because there was all over the news. I saw a bunch of articles about her being dead, and then she's not dead, so that's good to hear.
Unfortunately, Dawn Wells, who played Marianne on Gilligan's Island, did die.
She did die.
She did die.
She was real old, right?
She was 82.
No, that's not real old, but that's decently old.
But I grew up on Gilligan's Island. That was a really fun show as a kid to watch. I haven't seen it in forever.
I haven't seen it
but I have fond memories of it.
A while back, there was rumors of like either a remake movie or a remake TV show. Which
I'm surprised at this point that they haven't done that yet.
It'll
to be
happen.
honest.
They're going down the line of things that we all liked growing up.
Yeah, that's true.
They'll do it again.
It's true. So in other news, you hear about all the Michael Keaton Batman stuff?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So Michael Keaton, we already knew was going to be making at least a cameo in which movie was it Flash, I guess. It was supposed to be Flash. Because they're introducing the multiverse, not only in the MCU, but also in the DCEU.
Yeah.
So we're getting all these versions of different characters that have existed through film. Michael Keaton was going to come back as Batman, but it turns out that is not just a cameo for him, and that Michael Keaton is replacing Ben Affleck as the DCEU's official Batman, which I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it's happening. So we're going to have like Robert Pattinson Batman is still happening, and then they're spinning off Michael Keaton Batman into a new movie, which is replacing the Ben Affleck Batman movie.
Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of stuff going. I mean, it's weird. I'm not angry at it because I do really like Michael Keaton, and if he ends up playing like an older Batman and they do something with that whole thing,
if they do like Batman Beyond,
and it doesn't suck.
Michael Keaton, that would be
don't
awesome.
suck. That'd be great. I am bummed out because I didn't want to see more Ben Affleck as Batman because I did like him. It's like Superman. I liked the people who were playing it. They just put him in crappy movies. So I was kind of hoping to see Ben Affleck do something more.
I wasn't really into Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, but Ben Affleck's Batman is probably the coolest design of Batman that has been on film. Like it's totally old school Frank Miller version with that big fat bat symbol on his chest. This is my favorite design of Batman.
Yeah, and it's very much worth that look.
To see more of them.
Yeah. So, but if the trade-off is we get Michael Keaton, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be terribly upset at it. So let's see how that goes. It is really weird news though. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think until we get the specifics of what it all entails, it's kind of like I'm kind of on the fence about it. I mean, I'm excited to see Michael Keaton as Batman again, but I'm also like, I think that we're gonna have to do a show soon about nostalgia in film because I feel
Yes.
like a lot of movies are relying on nostalgia instead of actually giving us good content.
Hmm.
And
And
so
some are
that's
doing
what
both.
worries.
And some are doing both. They're giving us good content
Some
and
are
they're
doing
good.
both.
And they're,
Some are doing both. Um, but yeah, I feel like nostalgia isn't a pulling factor for me anymore because it's everywhere.
it's nostalgia should be an element of make you feel good as part of the movie, but it should not be a replacement for good story and good characters and
Yeah,
good filmmaking. It should just be an
right.
added. It's like the frosting on the cake. You can have a good frosting on the cake, but if your cake sucks, I'm not gonna eat it. I'll still eat it, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean anything.
I won't eat bad cake if it doesn't taste good, or
It's cake. I will eat it.
if it's got flavors in it that I don't like, then I'm not going to eat it.
I'm not that picky. I will eat almost anything.
I I can't stand coconut in cake.
Oh, I like
So if I
coconut
get
cake.
like that coconut texture in the icing or something, then I'm like, and it's happened a couple of times. I like shaved coconut on top of cake does not work for me.
Oh man, when we did wedding cake test tasting, it was great because it just gave us all kinds of different types of cakes. I was so
I'm
happy.
sure.
It made up for the fact that the girl helping us assumed I wasn't the groom because I was with a bunch of white people. That was funny. She looked at Amber and her brother and went. And she looked at them
Oh,
like they were the couple. I was like, I'm sitting
oh
across
no,
from her. It was real weird.
how awkward.
And so
That's so awkward.
it's off topic, but it's one of those things that like I wasn't offended. I was just thought it was so amusing because I saw the embarrassment in her face when she went, "Oh no!" She realized what she did. It was great. That made up for it. Anyways, cake, great, yeah. Batman.
Reed H. Cooper says it'd be cool if you could shave the frosting off of movies.
Well, without, yeah, I don't know how you
I
do
don't
that.
know exactly how that would work, but yeah, if you could do something like that, that would be
Metaphorically, it
cool.
works. I don't know practically.
Metaphorically. So the only other thing that I have in the news is not even official news, but it's something that I thought was, I saw people talking about, thought it was interesting enough that we could talk about it. But
Okay.
The Great Gatsby has entered the public domain.
Oh,
That story, which is a really cool story. Um, and people are talking about how they want a Muppet version of The Great Gatsby. And I could totally see that.
you know what? I could, but not how they currently do in the Muppets. I don't think they will.
Oh, no, no, no.
They would never do it.
But it's like what we were talking about just last week with our Christmas movies. How like the Muppets being put into stories and we just get to see them act out stories. Is a lot of fun when that happens.
Yeah, that would be great.
Most of the time, not all the time, most of the time. And I think that Great Gatsby has enough characters to that would be a good fit for Muppet characters. That it would
Hmm.
be really fun, and it has kind of adult themes that Muppets could play with. Like there could be lots of innuendo, but then a lot of jokes for more for families. Like innuendo would go over kids' heads, and that's when the Muppets are great when
Hmm.
they can like speak to multiple people in the audience.
Um, yeah, and I think that's the part that Disney doesn't quite understand that if you make Muppet stuff, you got to stop making Muppet stuff for kids. You need to make Muppet stuff
Yeah,
for the adults who were found, who were fans of it, and or do what the Muppets did, where they mixed a very like kind of like what the Simpsons did real well for a long time was like an all ages approach to something where a kid could watch it and have a good time, but an adult could watch it and have a good time as well.
yeah.
And that's not happening. But a Great Gatsby would be kind of cool. I would dig that.
I think it'd be fun. Manly Mutt says Felt It Friends Great Gatsby, which would also be cool, actually.
If we had the money, absolutely. It says, did you see the Moving Right Along video? Yeah, I did. It
I
was
haven't
cute.
seen it.
It was cute.
I haven't watched it.
That's one of those things where they did things from home. I really liked it.
Is it on Disney Plus?
It's on YouTube, I think. It's posted across social media. So it's kind of everywhere. It's one of those like Zoom call video ish that did it.
I have to check it out. I feel like I might be lagging a little bit.
Are you?
Like my picture is jumping around.
Oh, it is a little bit.
Not sure why, but
You sound good,
again, technical difficulties. First day at VMix.
Yeah. Do you want to just get back to the main event?
That's all I have
Is it
for the news. Yeah,
Okay.
it was not a lot of news this week.
Whoop. Back to the main event. Pixar
Everyone
Souls.
was celebrating. Everyone was celebrating Christmas and New Year, so not a lot of announcements made.
No. It's a very slow news day. I'm trying to get Twitch chat to work over here, and I can't get it to work. Twitch is like wigging out right now. So let's talk about, what do you want to talk about? Pixar, Soul, or Wonder Woman?
First, okay, let's take a poll. Like, yay or nay? Did you like Pixar Soul? Like, would you just thumbs up, thumbs down type of thing?
I didn't hate
And then
it.
I'm gonna ask the same thing for Wonder Woman.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't particularly connect with it. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't dislike it. Like, I didn't walk away going, ugh, that sucked. I was just kind of like, it didn't give me anything, really. And it could have just been how I was feeling that day. I have no idea. But I just definitely did not connect with it. There was all kinds of themes across that movie that were like, Art, you should be connecting with this movie. And I absolutely did not. How about you? What do you feel?
I all of that. I 100% agree with you on that. But then on top of that, Soul jumped into a lot of tropes that we've discussed on the show before that I have a problem with. And then not only did they have those tropes, but they doubled down and did something that was even worse. So we're going to get into that.
I wasn't expecting if it's a thing that I'm thinking. I was like, whoa, it's even worse than I thought it was.
Yes.
So let me talk about some of the themes that I saw in the movie that I should have connected with, right? So the whole
All right,
idea
let's just go to Soul.
So one of the things that
Go ahead.
that he, struggling with the whole idea of like pursuing a dream and feeling like you're not making it. That is a thing that like everybody around my age is struggling with, especially right now, where like you're working really hard, you're not quite finding the thing, you're working towards something, and it just something keeps stopping you. And that is an absolute theme of my life. It's something I complain about all the time. I've had plenty of obstacles put in front of me, failures and all that stuff. So I was like, I'm going to connect to this. Did not. I thought I'd connect with the music teacher things, especially because one of my, most influential teacher I've ever had is my high school band teacher. And he actually just passed away 2 weeks ago. So I was like, oh my God, this is going to make me feel really uncomfortable because I'm like, kind of emotional about it and stuff, and no, didn't connect with that. I just didn't feel there was something about this movie that I didn't connect with, and I don't know exactly what it was. And then on top, I went in with the awareness of its issues, so that made me that might probably brought down my excitement a little bit. And so I just didn't. I appreciated a lot that the movie had. Score was really pretty, animation was gorgeous, backgrounds were amazing. The film part of it was great. It's just the storytelling I wasn't connected to.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm the exact same way. I guess I'll start with
And
the
some
pluses.
some people in the chat agree.
Yeah, it's not the worst Pixar movie by far. I mean, it's no Good Dinosaur.
Which I was fine with.
There are pluses in this movie. I have to say that the character designs in it are probably the best humans Pixar has ever done.
Yes.
Like Pixar has, I think, finally nailed humans. They've been pretty good with humans for a while, but humans are really hard to do in CG. And I think that they really nailed human animation, human design, having a fleshy human look, but still in a stylized form, so it doesn't hit that uncanny valley. Put it off really well. Love the diversity of the cast. Love all the scenes in New York. Everything on Earth in the real world looked great. It was fantastic. loved having the black lead, loving having black culture as a part of it, and not
Mm-hmm.
just as a prop, but actually like um, the way jazz is handled in it and the way the
So good.
barbershop scene was handled in it. All of that stuff is great. Um, so it had me, the movie really had me up until the point that Joe, our main character, walks into a manhole and dies.
Because it happened
Like,
way faster than I thought it was going to happen.
it happens real quick.
It was before the title screen of the movie.
Yes.
By the way,
Yes.
spoilers for this whole thing.
Yeah, we're spoiling. Our main character dies. You know, the first Pixar finally has a black lead, and their decision is let's kill him. Let's just get him out of here. So he dies before the main title comes up, before the opening credits. And then when we get back from the main title, he's in this existential world because he's a soul, and we're following his soul. Everything in the existential level, I couldn't get into. I think that they did such a good job with Inside Out, and the way that they translated these ideas of our interior, our emotions, and our feelings, translating it into a way that audiences and particularly young kids could understand it
Yeah.
was very smart. Inside Out was kind of brilliant in that way, and everything made sense. Everything added up. I think that because they were dealing with emotions and feelings, and things that have a lot of scientific research behind it, and philosophical research, and a lot of understanding about why people feel certain ways, what triggers certain things. Inside Out was a lot easier to manage. When you start talking about souls, it's a lot more philosophical than scientific. There's not a lot of proof of anything, if that makes sense. So I think that them trying to find a way to ground the experience of a soul was hard to manage, and that they did not truly pull it off. There were some really cool ideas, like the lost souls were a really cool idea. The plane where you're in the zone, and so your soul is there because you're not, focusing on what is actually around your body. There's some really cool ideas there, but I think that overall it didn't quite add up to having this this plane of souls that was separate from Earth, and you have to jump to Earth. There was a lot of weirdness to it that I don't think was pulled off very well. So that was my first turn off for the movie, is that none of that stuff captured me. It's like you said, like the story could have been okay, but there were a lot of things that didn't quite pull you into it. Like you just didn't have that connection to it.
Yeah.
So then, Joe meets this, as a soul, meets this other character, 22, who has been a soul forever, never had a body. There's a whole lot of things they didn't even go into with that, like what happens if your soul just never connects to a body. Like there's so many existential things that break up the story of this movie, the way that they are trying to tell it. It doesn't work for me. But anyway, he meets this soul, and just jumping forward, the soul and Joe return to Earth. Joe's been, by the way, when we first see Joel in this existential plane, he's headed towards the light. He's literally dead. He's off. He's supposed to be dead. He's being counted as dead. So he and this character that he meets return to Earth. He's not supposed to. So once he returns to Earth, we get a villain for the movie, who's this character named Terry, who's kind of running around trying to catch him and bring him back. But when Joe and this new soul 22 get to Earth, Joe ends up in the body of a cat, and 22 ends up in Joe's body. So there's this whole twist to the story that we weren't expecting. So trope number one. which we've talked about on this show a lot,
Yeah.
is the fact that Black people in animation often do not get to remain Black people throughout their movie.
Yes.
We've seen it with Spies in Disguise. We've seen it with Princess and the Frog. We get Black coding with Osmosis Jones, even though he's a germ, so we never actually get to see his black skin. So Pixar's first Black movie, or Pixar's first movie with a Black lead, for some reason they decide, yeah, that's the trope we want to do. We're going to have this Black lead, this really cool character that has all this ambition and talent. We're going to kill him off before the opening credits, and we're going to make him physically a soul so that he looks like a little blue thing that kids would love to play with, and we can merchandise it. So that's trope number one. That's the first problem. They take that trope and then they double down on it, because even when Joe hopefully should be returning to his body so we can see him as a Black person, he instead ends up a cat and spends a lot of time in the movie as a cat. And 22 ends up in the Black body, and 22 is voiced by Tina Fey, who's great actress.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say one of my favorite people ever in the world ever. But
it is the strangest thing. As a Black person, I don't know how many other people had this experience. I know other Black people have had this experience.
I'm not even Black, and I had the experience.
It was the most cringeworthy, uncomfortable thing to watch Tina Fey's voice coming out of this Black man. No. Just point blank. No. Stop.
Like, if it had been for like a bit, we're like, oh my God, and then they found a way back or something, I was like, okay, because it's a bit, we're doing a bit. But it was the entire rest of the movie. And it was just Tina Fey talking out of this Black man's body, and it was real weird.
It was strange. It was strange. It's okay, so there's that. The two of them are mostly friendly. They don't know each other that well, but they seem to be mostly respectful of each other, until the point where 22, who is finally learning what it's like to be alive and now wants to be associated with a body because she's a soul that has never been with a body, she decides to go against Joe's wishes and steal his body and just go run amok. And that's problematic to have, to allow a white woman to just be in a Black body and run off with it and run amok. This movie is problematic, and I don't know, there's no way around that. I will say, so, there's a back and forth in this discussion. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about this, and one thing that people bring up is the fact that 22 as a soul, it's even mentioned in the movie, 22 as a soul actually could be anything. She's not necessarily a white woman as a character, even though she's voiced by a white woman. So within the context of the movie, the idea is that 22 could be anything. She could be a Black person once she connects to a body. We have no idea what her body would look like once she connects to it. I think that if 22 had been cast with a Black actress, then a lot of that problem out the window. It would have been fine. It would have been, I mean, there's still the idea that we don't get to see Joe stay a Black person throughout the whole movie. But the idea of someone else being in that movie, a Black actress performing that role, would then enhance the movie to be, one, to keep it in the Black experience. But it would be more about Joe mentoring Black youth as opposed to, because once Tina Fey gets the body, the story then becomes central to her and her character arc. And I think that if we had a Black character or a black actress voiced that character, it would have kept the story black centric, as opposed to
Yeah.
being Pixar's first black movie that actually the main character arc in the movie is a white character arc within a black body. It's strange. It's strange. And I don't know why there was no one, because there were black people working on this movie, and I'm
Well,
not sure why no one stepped up and said, "Can we make some changes here?"
yeah, and because even in the credits, it was all these like cultural, these thanks to like cultural places and like because they did a lot of research, but it looks like maybe they just did a research on jazz and culture and how and but they didn't run the story by anybody else because that would have been should have been immediately addressed.
But the writer is black.
He should have known better. I
And he has a new movie coming out as well that actually looks really good and is about Black history. That I actually want to see, but I'm not sure why. I don't know if Pixar production mandated some stuff and he had to just go with it, or I don't know if they thought that Tina Fey would be the big name that would draw people in for it to have a box office. I'm not sure why these decisions were made, but they're very odd decisions.
Reed H. Cooper says Jamie Foxx is black, and he said okay.
Right.
He also couldn't say he's somebody who could speak up. He has the cloud to say something and say, hey, can we work on this? Can we do something? But it didn't.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind all of these ideas was.
And I don't understand why they had to switch bodies. Like it didn't if they had both falling into Earth and then she just created problems for him, like the similar problems that he was having with being switched body, he could have still learned the lessons. He could have still had those bits where they ran into stuff and stuff happened wrong.
But that's what I mean. Like the putting her in the body means that the movie is not about him learning the lesson.
Yeah,
the movie is about her finding out that she is a soul that wants a body and what it is to experience life. That's what the core of the movie is, because the movie begins to rotate around her, which is a problem. The third trope, okay, so I did the first trope, black person doesn't say black throughout the whole movie. Second, not really even a trope because it doesn't happen that often, but it's just awful that we have this white person in a black body, and that becomes the center of the movie. Third problem with this movie, which is a trope, Joe becomes a magical Negro because it's all about him sacrificing himself to help this other character succeed. So at some point, Joe does return to his body. That guy Terry, who's like out to get them, he returns Joe and 22 back to the existential plane. And some things happen, and Joe ends up returning to his body. And he has a moment of realization that he's like, no, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. This is where 22 is supposed to be, not necessarily in his body, but alive. And so he sacrifices himself, ends up dying again so that he can go live out, or not even live out, but follow the plan that was intended for him, that he's supposed to be dead now, to allow 22 to have a body to return to Earth and to succeed. So it becomes a magical Negro trope where, a lot of times in film, a black character will sacrifice themselves, whether it's sacrifice their comfort or oftentimes literally sacrificing their lives like Joe does in this movie, so that a white person can then succeed or appreciate something more because this black person died for them. That's exactly what's happening in this movie. And it doesn't quite end that way, because there is a little moment at the end where the Jerrys, these existential people, come up to Joe and they're like, we really appreciate what you did here. You inspired us. People don't inspire us that often, but here you are inspiring us. So we think you should have a second chance at life. And they let him go back to Earth, and that's when the movie
Yeah.
ends. But that little part at the end, I bet was tacked on. I bet was not originally part of the ending, because it feels very, let's add this on.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel organic to the rest of the movie. It feels like the movie wanted Joe to go off into the light at the end. And I bet that was a cultural thing where those people were like, that you can't do. You can't just kill him off at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I was really looking forward to this movie, even knowing that first trope was happening, going into it. But I was astounded by this other stuff that was happening. I just couldn't believe what I was watching.
Yeah, same. Because there was a lot of cool stuff about it. Actually, Rich Cooper earlier made a good point. That he said, "Wait, am I the only one who thought Joe wasn't a great of a dude? I didn't like him that much. They didn't give us enough time for us to like him, and he can't. And once he got to, because he dies right away, he's just a dude. When you meet him, he's just a guy. He's a struggling teacher, just trying to, and that's it. We get this guy who's struggling and is trying to make his way through life, be successful, whatever. And then he becomes the soul, and he becomes kind of a dick for a little bit because he doesn't want to help anybody. He cares about himself. He wants to get this thing. He just wants to go back, and he gets kind of shoved into this mentor situation with 22, and he does it out of selfishness. Does it so he can get back to Earth. So right off the bat, I wasn't rooting for him because he was kind of a jerk, and so I didn't feel like I wanted him to succeed. Initially, you're like, oh yeah, I want this guy to succeed maybe a little bit, and then he just pushes the other way, and I didn't really care.
Yeah,
I cared a little bit more about 22 because she was funny. It was funny. I don't know, but generally he wasn't a very likable guy, and I think they struggled with getting him there, and I think they should have spent more time being him being likable, and being more. And I think they tiptoed around the idea that he was a mentor type, somebody who teaches, because I think in the end, I think that's kind of what his calling was, to be a mentor. But they tiptoed around it so it would be a surprise at the end. But he was literally a teacher. We could have just known that from the beginning, that he doesn't know that mentoring is his thing, but we could have known that the entire time. So we would have been rooting for him as he discovered it. But they tried to keep it away. They were like, oh, we'll just give you hints that maybe that's his calling. And they didn't commit to it. And I didn't. By the time he figured it out, I was like, I think that's what this movie. Yeah, and in the end, I didn't really understand exactly what the message was. It was very unclear, and I'm a big fan of show me, don't tell me, but it didn't quite show me exactly what the end was. It didn't show me what.
It didn't show you or tell you.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of I didn't. I wanted to like it. It
gets mixed up. It gets real mixed up because there are two character arcs in this. There's Joe's character arc and there's 22's character arc. And Joe's character arc should be the main character arc because that's the character we're connected to and following throughout. But I think that they gave more thought to 22's character arc, which is why it feels stronger. 22's character arc is definitely shown in the movie in a very blatant way, where we see that it's literally a soul who has not had a body. She experiences a body, and she's, to begin with, she's literally trying to fight off having a body. She doesn't want to go to Earth and have a life. And then when she is on Earth and has Joe's body, she experiences what is great about life. Even the small things, just like eating pizza is great. So it's a very distinct character arc where she, starts out in one place and ends up in a totally different place that the character has grown. Joe's character arc is not as strong. It's there, but it's like you spend so much time. Joe spends so much time wanting this very particular thing to happen, which is to play in this jazz band with this jazz musician who has all this notoriety. And he believes that jazz and piano is his spark. So we spend so much time having that ingrained in us that to learn that that wasn't really his spark, that mentoring was his spark, is such a quick twist. For the audience, we kind of get it, but we're never exactly told that Joe gets it.
Yeah.
There's never a moment where Joe's like, oh, um, 22, this girl who's come to visit me from my class, who wants to give up band, this drummer who is now playing in this band, all these people that I have inspired, this is what I need to do and focus on. Joe never has that moment.
No.
We have, as an audience, kind of see it, but Joe himself never has that moment. So when he ends up with his body at the end, and he comes walking out of that door and it just fades to black, it's like, okay, so what is he going to do? Is he still going to be out trying to play jazz, or is he going to be out trying to teach?
It left too much up to us, which is sometimes fine, but this one, it didn't work out. Like, literally give us 10 seconds of him back at school being happy to teach these kids. That would have been enough for us to go, oh, he found his calling. That's what he wants to do. And he found his whatever. We didn't get it. Yeah.
Reed H. Cooper says, honestly, it felt very bait and switch from promotion to delivery. And I agree. I remember I was really excited on this show.
Yeah.
The first day that we heard about this movie, they announced it, just the title, didn't even tell us what it was about, but they announced Soul on Juneteenth, which is a very important holiday for Black Americans. And the way that the movie plays out, I feel like, I really hate saying this about Pixar, who is a company that I really enjoy their product most of the time, but I really feel like Pixar used blackness as a prop and a promotional gimmick for this movie. Because the movie's blackness doesn't amount to anything. I mean, it could have been Pixar. Go ahead.
It could have been any character. It didn't have to be a black jazz playing character. It could have been anybody. It didn't. Yeah, you're right. They used it as a prop.
Gosh, I almost teared up saying that because it really hurts. And I'm sick of these same tropes happening over and over again that we should be trying to move on past.
It's not 1990.
I was really excited for, Pixar to have a black lead character. I was so excited for it. And it just didn't.
Especially after they did such a good job with Coco and they embraced that storytelling and the culture and they went out of their way to like try really hard. And I was like, cool. They understand what it's like. And then this happened.
Yeah.
It also feels like it's one of those movies that like it tried to deviate a lot from the classical storytelling and how you write scripts and archetypes, and to like we didn't get quite. This story felt like what's called a romantic comedy. So where like two characters are basically two characters are trying to attain something. There's a villain trying to stop them from doing it, and it started that way, and then it just kind of went into its own archetypes and its own. It tried to push itself out of way of these guidelines that we use in storytelling that we've been using for thousands of years. And whenever that people pull away because they think they can do better, that's when the story starts getting all mushy and it doesn't make sense. That's why they're there. You don't have to use them dot by dot, but they're a good guideline. And this one tried too hard to do something different, and it didn't give us a story that made sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you that's pretty much it. They tried to do too much with this movie. And I think like I keep saying existential, there's something existential about this movie. I mean, literally in the story, but then also about the movie itself and what it's trying to be. And I feel like it's trying to be something for all the wrong reasons, if that makes sense. It's like it's trying to be something new and innovative when we really just want a cool black story, and we're not getting that. Like, you don't have to be new and innovative. just give us representation. Like,
Yeah.
just let us be there. And that's why I like all of the, aside from the fact that Joe's not in his body, I like all of the human scenes because that black representation is visually there. They nailed those human
Mm-hmm.
characters. The barbershop scene, all of the people in there feel like
Mm-hmm.
real people. And there are a lot of like details as far as uh, pictures on the wall, the way
Mm-hmm.
people talk, the way they move, the hand gestures, all that
Yeah.
stuff is there. But this movie is literally about soul. This movie is literally titled Soul. And you're giving us the visual surface, but you're not letting us have the important interior and how we feel. So the movie has this existential idea, but the movie itself is like an existential failure,
It's
if
like
that makes sense.
it's like a white dude directed it. That's what it
Oh,
feels like.
that what it feels
Yep.
like? Inauthentic, as we talk about on this show all the time. If it does, it feels very inauthentic. Yeah, I feel like black director, black actress, voice actress as 22. Um, this movie probably would have had a lot of um, better points.
Also, what's up with Pixar not letting people of color direct their own movies? Why do they have a co-director? A white man co-director. They did that with Coco as well. Even though they got Coco right for the most part, they still did not just let the one dude direct it. What is
It's
that about?
because this is my theory, and I don't know for sure. It's because the white directors have the name recognition and say within Pixar, but they don't really know these stories, and so these directors of color are. I'm going to say people of color because I don't even feel like these directors are getting the chance to direct. These people of color are brought in to say yay or nay on things, to
Mm-hmm.
say, yeah, that works, yeah, that doesn't, as far as the culture. But as far as directing, they don't. I don't feel like. I think that co-director is just tagged on, because I didn't even see that Soul had a co-director until I really looked into it, really researched it.
Mm-hmm.
All of the promotional stuff just used, uh, or not even promotional stuff, but all of the writings for the movie, like everything that I would read online, just used Pete Docter's name as the director.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I looked further, I was like, oh, there's someone else working on this with him. And I got excited for that because I was like, hopefully they're steering him in the right direction, but that didn't quite work out.
Yeah. And then maybe it's just how much he was allowed to do. How much, because it does feel like in Coco, as Adrian Molina, who was the co-director, had a lot to say, because there's
Yeah.
a ton of stuff that Lee Unkrich, what is his last name? Unkrich, would have never known. There's absolutely no way, and so he got to have a lot to say. Which, and then maybe in this situation, is it Matt Powers? That is his name. He had a lot more to say in terms of like the jazz and a lot of the stuff, but didn't have a lot to say what the story was so much.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there are just so many, like those human scenes have so many little tiny details that are cool to see on film because they are a part of the black experience. But there's just so many other big glaring problems that unfortunately override that for me. And I really was just cringing throughout the whole movie. Like I was talking earlier about how 22 is not technically a white woman, because she's a soul and she hasn't been connected to a body.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had just, it would have even been okay if like you don't recognize. I won't say it would have been okay because I still want a black actress in that role.
Mm-hmm.
But had you come into the movie not recognized Tina Fey as the voice, if you just heard this voice and thought, um, uh, this is just like a whatever character who has not been fully fleshed out into a race, does not have a race. They still added. I don't know whose decision this was, but but for some reason they literally have a joke in the movie where they refer to Tina Fey's voice as being a white woman. Do you remember that?
No, I missed that.
So Joe asks, like it's like right after they first meet, and Joe asks, "Why do you sound like a white woman? If you could be anything, why do you sound like a white woman?" And she
Oh.
says, "I use this voice because it annoys people." Like she literally is a character that wants to push everyone away because she doesn't want to be around life or anything like that. So she says she uses that voice to annoy people. So even with the idea that 22 could be anything, the movie has intentionally and bluntly set up that 22 is to be associated with a white woman before they put 22 into a black body.
Yeah.
So they're hurting themselves just by doing stuff like this. Something else that was, go ahead, because I'm going to move on after you.
If we were in the 90s, we could have gotten away with it, going, hey, probably should have done this, and we would have been fine. We would have moved on. But we should know better than this now.
Yeah.
It's 2020 when this movie came out. It feels like no excuse. Now it just feels like you're not trying.
It's inexcusable. And then there's the idea that, we were talking earlier about how movies are better off when they're geared to, the whole family and not just, adults or children. There's some stuff in this movie that I can't figure out who the audience for this movie actually is as far as age. Because there's some stuff in this movie that I don't think young kids or little kids are going to be able to understand. And there's some stuff in this that I don't think little kids would enjoy seeing. Like, I think there are some genuinely upsetting moments in this that kids are going to be questioning. There's the Lost Souls, which, I like horror in all of my entertainment. And I think kids should be given the credit that they can take horror, like on certain levels. So the Lost Souls are one thing that are really creepy in this movie. And I actually think that they're one of the better ideas in this movie as far as how to represent souls. But then there's this moment where, Terry is chasing down Joe and 22 because they're back on Earth when they shouldn't be. And he catches up with someone he thinks is Joe. He thinks he's caught them. It's another guy from the barbershop who has just been kind of like, what's his name?
Paul,
yeah. Paul's this guy from the barbershop who has just been kind of like teasing Joe. And so he's kind of been introduced as a villainous character. We've seen negative sides of him so that when something bad happens to him, we don't feel too bad about it. But something to understand within the Black community, one is that shade and reading and jokes and talking about each other is often a sign of bonding within the Black community. So something that was presented in this movie very negatively is actually something that is not necessarily, it can be, but not necessarily negative within the Black community. But then this character that we've seen just kind of teasing Joe, we see Terry, the guy that's looking for Joe, catch up with this guy thinking that it's Joe and pull his soul away.
He kills him.
And when that happens, Paul falls into this dark place that looks a lot like the sunken place in Get Out, which I feel like, Black people watching this movie is part of big Black culture. Black people are going to click with that and say, oh shit, they really just fucked this guy up. And it's going to instantly be, how am I phrasing this? Something that Black people notice and are emotionally affected by. And maybe that's what they were going for, because it is supposed to be a dramatic moment. But
then they lingered on it. They lingered on his trauma.
Exactly. Terry then puts his soul back in his body because he realizes that he's done the wrong thing. And then he just leaves. Terry goes off, and Paul is sitting in this like dark alley. He's like right around the corner from like the main street, so you can see life is still going on. Everyone else is happy and okay, but he's sitting underneath this graffiti against this brick wall in this dark alley, and he's clearly fucking traumatized. And that was it's a dramatic moment, but it was very there was something about it that just felt very triggering as a black person to watch. Like it felt like this black person had just been abused and left, and it was very uncomfortable. And I'm like, this is a movie that you guys want kids, and then on top of that, black kids to watch. It didn't feel right to me. It felt very problematic and uncomfortable.
We should post this episode on Twitter and then tag all the Pixar.
I've already had someone ask me if this episode was going to be on YouTube yet.
Yes, it will be. 2021.
This is what we need to get up on YouTube so that people can. And you know, we aren't the only ones having this conversation. A lot of people are already having this conversation. So I'm not the only black person to notice this stuff.
Sometimes I feel like we have really cool insight. Like, we saw something nobody else saw. This one is being spoken about across the internet. We are not the only ones. I don't feel special. I was like, yeah, I'm just agreeing with everything else that I saw. Yeah.
I just want some good black representation. Why does it feel like those words, good black representation, is just too much to ask for? Like, why can't it happen? There is good black representation,
but not enough
out there. But we could always use more. We could always use more good Latino representation as well. Good everything representation. Like, I get so frustrated. I just want good movies, and y'all doing all this shit.
And they have access to it, right? They did Coco, so they understand the kind of level, the commitment they need to make. Marvel made Black Panther and made a lot of people happy. So nobody thought to go, what did Coco get right? Let's pull ideas from there. What did Black Panther do right for the black community? Let's take some of those ideas and let's smash those together and then talk to some more people and then figure it out. No, they just were like, let's just make this movie. And
and instead of pulling from those two movies, let's pull from all these old tropes that we should not be doing anymore.
Earlier, Reed said, so this episode should just be called Disappointment. Kind of.
Well, I mean, we've talked about Soul. I will say, if you want to move into Wonder Woman, I'm going to lead by saying I enjoyed Soul more than Wonder Woman.
Oh no. I think I enjoyed Wonder Woman a little bit more than I did Soul.
I mean, I have to at least give Soul credit for what I already said. Like the Black human characters were just a joy to see. Like their animation was incredible. Physically, visually, they were amazing to see, and I have to give them that credit.
If Tina Fey would have just not gone into his body, we would have been fine.
Could you imagine? Just imagine 22. Because a couple of people in the chat actually said 22 felt a lot like Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph, which she did. And I feel like a part of that, some of his character design, but a part of it is also how the character is played voice-wise. Because she's supposed to be a little annoying character who's just like all over the place. So if you were to take Tina Fey out and imagine character 22 with someone like Tiffany Haddish. How amazing would that have been? There are so many black actress comedians that could have done this role. Leslie Jones could have been cool in it. Like, so many black actress comedians who have great voices that I would love to see in an animated movie. For example, Tiffany Haddish was a character in the last Angry Birds movie. Highlight of the movie. One of the highlights of the movie. Her voice acting is hilarious. She really could have turned this role. So, there's no excuse at this point.
There was nothing that required Tina Fey. Again, I love her. I would put her in anything except this one thing. I was like, it's just funny. She's great, but like, did it need to be her? No, and we could have just saved ourselves a whole lot of problems. Savage Stalker says he's over Tina Fey. No, we're not over Tina Fey. I love Tina Fey forever. All right, let's go into Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. I did not hate this movie, but I also didn't love it. I'm a lot that with the movies. Because you'll know when I don't like a movie. But it definitely was a little bit of a letdown. I wanted it to be better, and it wasn't. Which makes me a little bit afraid for the Squadrons movie that Patty Jenkins is directing. I'm hoping that her passion for flying and her dad was a pilot will carry over, which is weird. But Rita Scribble says, I didn't finish the Wonder Woman. That says a lot. What did you not like, Will? What did you find issues with? What made you unhappy?
I can't decipher whether it was Patty Jenkins or whether it was, we want this kind of stuff in our production, and so it came from producers.
Yeah.
But this movie was a lot more lighthearted than the first Wonder Woman. The first Wonder Woman was taken a lot more seriously, and I think that it was a plus for that movie. With the ideas it was trying to tackle as far as being anti-war and Wonder Woman being a strong character who uses love as a weapon.
Yeah.
This movie felt like a joke.
Yeah.
And so there were a lot of things like Dave and I, probably like 15 minutes into the movie, Dave and I just started heckling it and laughing at it because nothing in it was taken seriously. Everything, and that may have been what they were going for if they wanted something that was more comedic, but I feel like this new Wonder Woman 84 was somewhere in the middle of having characters that had this serious side to them, but wanting to be campy. So it had both of those elements, but it needed to push in one direction or the other more, as opposed to just sitting in the middle and letting it all be there, because then it just became a big mess.
I think it's indicative of just kind of what Marvel has been doing. DC has been doing and for a while. Like, they haven't committed to a feel or a tone in their movies. So this and this movie was a big example of that, right? The first movie had a far more serious tone to it, and then we went to the 80s, and all of a sudden it got weird and silly. And I can see some of that maybe just being the fact that they were playing on the fact that it was the 80s, and the 80s is just kind of silly to begin with. But it didn't read to me as proper tone for this movie. It pulled me out definitely, because a lot of the stuff that came off weird because it was a silly movie might have been fine if we had known that coming in. Like, if that had been set up as this is the world that Wonder Woman lives in, but it wasn't. We came off that other movie, and we came off the Justice League, which is all trying to be super dark and stuff, and we came into this, and it didn't click for me. So
that's my general idea of the movie is that it's a mess because it needed to push in one direction or the other. But to get into details, because I'm going to pull these details out, Wonder Woman, the first Wonder Woman movie was a great movie because we really had not, up until that point, gotten a comic book superhero female-led movie on that level that was that successful and that well done and taking that seriously. I mean, we had gotten like Halle Berry Catwoman, Elektra, which was not that great, Barbed Wire, like what female superhero movies before Wonder Woman can you name that were actually like legitimate,
I cannot think of any off the top of my head.
So Wonder Woman was a big deal because Marvel at that point hadn't even decided to do Black Widow. They were just like, we're not going to have female leads. So, and the fact that that first movie positioned Wonder Woman in such a fantastic way, where she was uh, this strong female character surrounded by men and then able to outdo men, um, made it a, in my opinion, I'm sure there are women who might think differently, and I don't want to speak for them, but in my opinion, I felt like the first Wonder Woman movie was a great feminist movie
Yeah.
because it had this strong woman and was pushing these strong womanly ideas, like we can fight with love, we can fight with we can have our own agency. Like so many
Hmm.
people in that movie were trying to tell Wonder Woman that she couldn't do things this way,
She was like,
and she's
no.
like, "Fuck y'all, I'm going to do things this way, and this is how it's going to happen." This movie, Wonder Woman 84, is literally the opposite of that.
Hmm.
Wonder Woman 84 takes away Wonder Woman's powers, like literally and story wise. Like it
Hmm.
just Wonder Woman becomes a less a less caring character. She becomes a less powerful character. She becomes a character who is a little more selfish, which is fine. I'm okay with women being selfish because women don't aren't allowed to be selfish.
Hmm.
But the way that it's showed in the movie is really off-putting.
Yeah.
So, for example, we're going to get into spoilers for anyone. I saw someone say they hadn't watched Wonder Woman yet, but we're getting into
No, Regis
spoilers
Cooper
for
just
the.
didn't finish it. He gave
No,
up on it.
I think Andrew was in a chat earlier and said he
Oh,
hadn't
okay.
watched it yet.
Get out of here,
Um,
Andrew.
which yeah, 84, the 80s is not one of Andrew's decades, so I understand he hasn't watched it yet. Um, but so Wonder Woman, you know, okay, there's this. Let's set up the premise of the movie. There's a stone. Whatever wish you make while holding the stone, you're gonna get. Um, Wonder Woman wishes for uh, Steve Rogers because I mean Steve Trevor, not Steve Rogers. That's the
She
other.
could have wished for him
The
too.
other.
She would have been happy.
I mean, I would have been more happy with Steve Rogers, but she wishes for Steve Trevor to return because obviously it's been decades and she's been pining over Chris Pine for all these decades. Who in their right minds would think that Wonder Woman has just been pining over Chris Pine all this time? Like, I'm sure
Like
Wonder
40
Woman has been
years.
out there. Wonder Woman has been out there getting hers and she's fine. Trust me. She's Wonder Woman. So that's the first thing. But she wishes for him to come back. He comes back, but the stone works in a weird way where it it doesn't just create what you want out of thin air. Whatever you wish for, kind of comes through. It's like it alters fate in a way, so
Hmm.
that it happens, but it happens in a way that seems more realistic.
And
It's
there's
not
always
like
consequences to your wishes.
right,
It's
and
not
it's not like
straightforward.
you. It's not like you wish for money and money appears in your hand. If you wish for money, then something will happen to the stock market and you'll end up getting all these loans or whatever. That kind of thing. So when she wishes for Steve Trevor, she ends up meeting a guy who turns out to be who turns out to have Steve Trevor's essence within him. Like it's
Yeah.
not even explained exactly what happens.
No.
Um, but it is fucked up that her and Steve Trevor. It's the fucking same thing with Soul. Oh my god, we have a theme for tonight's show. Her and Steve Trevor go run amok in this man's body without his consent. And it's the fucking same thing as Soul. I can't believe that just clicked for me.
Oh man, imagine
Um,
if it had been a black man that they did this to.
could you imagine? But no, I just think that it's like it's fucked up that they Wonder Woman is so into having Chris Pine back that what she does to this man's body is inconsequential. I mean, she ends up having that revelation later in the movie, and they make things right. But they fucking fly to Cairo. They're all over the place. And they
What happened to this guy's job, his family, whatever? Who cares?
right.
Just
He's
toss it
not
out
been
the
to work
window.
for a few days. And then just quickly, why the fuck do they go to Cairo? Because they go there, they beat up brown people, and then they come back. That's literally all that happens.
They went to go
This
look
movie-
for. They went to look for Pedro because he was there.
Right, but they go there, they beat up brown people, and then they come back. That's all that happens.
She manhandles some little brown kids, and then she goes home.
And also, like, what's the deal with Cairo being this like small sandy town where kids have to play in the highway? Like, why is that our idea of what Cairo is?
It's just a big city.
So then we also have, going back to the stone thing, we also have the introduction of Barbara, who becomes Cheetah from the comics, played by Kristen Wiig, who I will say the one saving grace for this movie, for me, what I actually enjoyed from this movie were both Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal as campy comic book villains, like old school style campy comic book villains. I really wish that they had just pushed more into camp for this movie and let it be, instead of trying to have all these dark and serious
commit.
origins. If you're going to do camp, because those two actors pulled it off. Those two actors pulled off their characters.
There was
No
a
one else
level of
did.
commitment that was great.
Yeah, Pedro Pascal screaming in the climax of that movie was like, and I was very happy to actually see him, first of all, be able to show his face, but also like just to see that level of commitment and his level of acting, because Mandalorian, you get a very different version of Pedro Pascal, which is fitting for Mandalorian. But yeah, so Kristen Wiig is Cheetah. She gets a hold of the stone before she becomes Cheetah, and her wish is to become more powerful. She's, again, both of these movies deal with old tropes. Kristen Wiig is that old mousy secretary trope who everyone overlooks, and until she comes into power, no one thinks is important. So I get the feminine representation that they're trying to do with that, because women in the workplace are often overlooked and that kind of thing. But the way that they treat her transformation into Cheetah just feels it feels awful for it to be a woman about female empowerment. There are some things that she does as Cheetah that I'm like, fuck yeah, woman, like, do your thing. But they treat her as a villain because she's a villain in the movie. So there's this one guy who literally tries to rape her while she's walking through a park. He's literally and Wonder Woman has to come save her, or Diana, because she's not actually Wonder Woman at the moment. Diana comes to her rescue. Yeah, thanks for the follow. Diana comes to her rescue, and that makes Barbara believe that Diana is really powerful and confident in herself, and that's what she wants. So that's what she wishes on the stone. And as Barbara's power begins to grow, she runs into the same guy again, and he again is being a shithead to her. And so she knocks him around because she's got all this strength and power. She kicks his ass, and I'm like, yes, do that. I love that scene. And then immediately they have let's talk about black people as props. There's a homeless black guy in this movie who is only in 2 scenes and only serves to show that Barbara has changed as a person. So the first scene, Barbara, that same scene where she encounters that guy the first time walking through the park, she's just given a plate of food that she made to this homeless man because we need to see that she's caring and and cares about homeless people and thinks of more than just herself. And she's a good woman. And so in that other scene where she kicks this guy's ass, who deserves it, that black homeless guy witnesses it and he comes running up and says, "Barbara, what's happening?" or something along those lines.
Yeah.
He's like shocked.
What are you doing?
He's kicking his ass. He clearly didn't see that this man had just accosted her 2 minutes earlier. But, he's now looking at Barbara through eyes of like, this woman is crazy and this woman is so mean and evil. And those are the two scenes that the black guy's in. That's our use of a black guy in this movie. But yeah, Barbara is completely in the right. And I feel like a movie that is about female empowerment wouldn't make that a negative thing for the character.
Yeah.
It just didn't. This movie just doesn't have a thorough moral that it's trying to bring up, which sucks. It doesn't treat women in a good light, in my opinion. I've talked long enough. Your turn.
Yeah, I did really like we're talking about the whole campiness and not really quite committing to like a tone. I feel like the movie started out okay because they set her up as like she had her shiny outfit, which was very very 80s, and I liked. And we set up this like happy fun, like, "Ooh, I'm killing, beating up bad guys," ooh. And then they didn't commit to that. That was great.
That opening mall scene was fun.
It does feel like maybe the studio did have a lot to say and a lot of opinions about this movie that got in the way of getting a clean story out. What did you think about CG stuff and the movie? There were some things I really liked, and I don't get why they weren't. There was a lot of inconsistencies for me in visually, particularly in Cheetah. There was some really bad, not convincing CG with her, like in all the wide shots of her jumping around. I didn't like, but there was a ton of close-up shots,
like in the climax, or
when she's full out Cheetah, when she's full out, like completely, and then but when they did close-ups on her, I couldn't tell if it was makeup or CG, and it looked really good to me. Whenever it was like shots like this.
I think the close-ups were makeup.
I think it was a mixture of CG and makeup, and that's why they looked really good. But I hated the way she looked when she was full CG. I was very very icky.
The cheetah character in the comics. I wish that they had gone more for the classic cheetah look. I mean, there have been multiple cheetahs in the comics, but originally she was a character. She was a woman just wearing a cheetah outfit, like a costume, like a Catwoman or something like that. But then there was another version of Cheetah who was a character the Barbara version of Cheetah, who was a woman who literally turned into a cheetah like she does in this movie, but she had short hair and she actually looked more like a cheetah. And that's the look that I wish that they had gone for this, because then they wouldn't have to do all that awful CG animated hair, which is a part of what makes that look not work. When she's standing still delivering lines, that hair isn't a problem, because they're just doing shots. But jumping around and having to control all of that, all of her longer hair just didn't work. And I wish that she would have looked more feline if she had the shorter hair. I wonder if, I don't know how far up until the release of this movie, since it was pushed back so much, I don't know if they went back and tried to do more. I doubt it. But I wonder if, I guess a better way of putting what I'm saying is, I wonder how much of the CG had been done before Cats came out last year. Because I wonder if they saw the reaction to Cats and thought, we need to have a different look, and maybe we should add hair to her. Maybe we should keep her hair long.
Yeah, maybe.
But it didn't work out. Yeah. I actually like the scenes that are happening between her and Wonder Woman. That fight scene I like the choreography of it. I like the
Hmm.
wildness of it because he's supposed to be a wild superhuman character. Um, but the CG, you're right, is
It
just
didn't.
like
It was weird to me.
it didn't work.
Mm-mm.
Um, also, Barbara gets 2 wishes. Everyone
Yeah,
else wishes on the stone once.
I only thing I
But
assumed is because she wished on the stone and then she wished on Pedro that maybe
yeah,
they became two. That's what I was really weird about. That I was like, that was weird.
it was weird. But she wishes first to become powerful, and then she wants to become like
She's an apex
uh
predator.
apex predator.
Yeah.
And that's why she becomes cheetah. But
And so Wonder Woman was her losing of powers and becoming weak part of her wish. Like she had to give up a little bit of her life to give Steve some life.
so I went through a whole thought process with this during the
Yeah.
movie because it's never explained, which
Mm-mm.
is another downside to this movie. I was thinking, my first thought was, because I think what you just said is uh, actually what happened. I think you're correct in that. But
Hmm.
my first thought was that Diana was losing power because that power was being transferred to Barbara, because her initial
Yeah.
wish is to have power like Diana.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought was happening at
That's
first,
what I thought
but then
too.
that doesn't continue. So then it's like she must be losing it because of her own wish, because everyone's wish comes with a sacrifice. Um, and it's I think that that's true because when she finally gives up her wish, her power immediately comes back.
Hmm.
Um, and it's that climax with Pedro Pascal acting his ass off in that beam of light,
Hmm.
and Diana with her power back, but still for some reason like falling off,
Beat up. So yeah.
beat up, laying in the corner, and she's like monologuing to him about how he should do the right thing. That is such a lame ass climax.
Well, in this
Like
movie,
literally, you have this powerful character who you're just going to lay in a corner and have her, like, she looks all crooked in the corner, and
yeah,
she's just going to monologue to him.
and this movie asked us to suspend disbelief a lot more than I was ready to do, because the whole
Yeah,
wishing thing was a little weird. I was like, okay, we're gonna go with the wishing thing. Okay, I can let go of that, but then like it just keep asking us to just ignore the fact that this doesn't make sense. Like Mrs. Reed H. Cooper just mentioned something about the wishes that people don't give up. Are we just to assume that every single person on Earth was just like, okay, I'll give it up?
every single person.
Every single person, and that to me didn't. It felt very like unrealistic. And the
No, I
movie,
actually think that that's how the movie feels. Like, I totally agree with you that um, the movie is set up. This story wise, the movie is set up for you to think that that's what happened.
hmm,
But what actually happened is that Pedro Pascal gave up his wish,
which
which
undid everything.
reverted everything.
That makes
But the
sense.
movie, but the movie doesn't explain that.
No, but now that
The
you say
movie,
that
make,
out,
the movie makes you think that, because we get all of those scenes of people just going, "I give up my wish. I give up my wish. I give," like throughout the entire world. It doesn't make any sense. The movie didn't need to do that. It's confusing for them to add that. But yeah, Pedro Pascal reverts his wish, and that just does everything.
yeah. So
Let's talk about how great Pedro Pascal is, though,
he's
because we
great.
haven't really talked about him.
It's like
Um,
they gave him a role, and he was like, "It's a weird ass role. It's kind of weird and silly, but I'm gonna commit to it." And he went in, and he was great.
I like him as an actor in this role more than I even like the character,
Yes.
because the character is also from comics,
Hmm.
um, and interesting that they use this character in the way that they do, set in the 80s, because um, we were saying like the producers, and I feel like Patty Jenkins was part of this too, but the producers and Patty Jenkins, I think, wanted to do something that was very relevant right now.
Hmm.
And Pedro Pascal's character is a specific pastiche of Donald Trump.
Hmm.
And I feel like that idea um, became became more important than doing a Wonder Woman movie,
Mm-hmm.
and overrode a lot of stuff. I feel like because of the last 4 years that we've had with Donald Trump as president, the idea of doing something that would be a big fu to him became the focus of this movie, which is unfortunate. Fortunate for Pedro Pascal because he acts his ass off in his role, as I
Mm-hmm.
said. But it just didn't make a strong movie,
Mm-mm.
like the character.
And
And
this
they
whole.
didn't even use him in marketing. Like the whole marketing was that
Mm-mm.
Cheetah was the villain of the
Mm-mm.
movie, and they were trying to save him as a secret for some reason.
She wasn't. She was. It's these superheroes that do that, right? Where they bring in too many villains and they don't know what to do with them, and they end up not using it. Like it happened in Spider-Man 3, right? When he had Venom, who sucked, but then we had like Sandman, who was far more interesting, and then we did very little with him. And then this whole idea of like we need to put a bunch of villains in, but then not committing to one of them and actually letting them be the villain of the movie. We throw villains in there just to cause trouble instead of the singular idea.
Right, right.
He just
And
says,
then
leave Topher alone.
leave Topher alone. Yes, exactly. um, and
It
then
was terrible.
for it to be such a social commentary on 80s businessmen getting too much power, um, the climax doesn't work because that character would never, rethink that gift. And they try to set it up that he gives up, I mean, not gift, that wish. They try to set it up that he um, takes his wish back because he wants the better for his child. But nowhere in the movie do they even show that and his child have a strong connection. Like nowhere do they show that he
Well,
every time he's with his kid, it feels like a chore for him.
yeah. Well, and the whole thing is like he thinks that the best for his child is for him to be rich and powerful, and that translates that's what he if he was thinking for his child, he would think that being rich and powerful was how he was going to get better things for his child, not just giving it all up. It was
Right.
too quick of like we could have gotten there, but it had happened in the
Yeah.
span of Wonder Woman, whispering things to him. It just didn't work.
Right. Just like whispering sweet nothings in his ear. There, yeah. There were a lot of problems in this movie. It just did not add up.
What do you think about the invisible plane?
I because I've been wanting to see the invisible plane
Yeah.
done. I did not like the way that they did it.
It felt very
It's
much
I
like we have no intention of ever doing the plane because we don't think it's going to work in this universe. So we're just going to toss you a little thing. And again, it was one of those moments where like you're asking me to like suspend disbelief at the fact that she does magic now. She goes like this, and like she has magical powers that she just makes things invisible. Okay, I guess we'll do it
yeah,
for the bit.
it didn't make any sense. And then it's exactly like you said. Like I want Wonder Woman to have her invisible plane, but if that doesn't work in this world,
Don't
in
have
the
it.
world that you're creating, then it doesn't work, and don't do it. This was just like such a. I feel like if they had done something that was an Easter egg, that was like something that fans would have seen in the background, then it would have been cool.
Yeah.
But for them to focus on it so much, for it to amount to nothing, it didn't. It was
didn't.
weird. And then, in addition to that, because they're flying this plane to Cairo, the plane that they took is not going to get them to Cairo.
Get them to Cairo. That's what I said too. It's like there's no way they're gonna get from the U.S. across the Atlantic Ocean all the way to Cairo in that little ass plane.
It didn't make any sense. I think that the invisible plane scene was one of my least favorite scenes in the movie, but I have to actually bring up my least favorite scene in the movie,
Uh-oh.
which is Steve Trevor trying on clothes that lasted for 10 minutes too long.
Yeah.
And then the final, like them going off on how great he looked in his final outfit that he picked, and then seeing that the guy wears more of that later in the movie too, it was just like, come on, this movie is stupid. This movie is so stupid.
What about her new superpower? Her power of flight.
I wish that I like Wonder Woman being able to fly.
Yeah, I don't bother with it.
And she has been able to fly in the comics for a while now, which is why she doesn't use the invisible plane anymore. I wish they had given us one or the other, not both. But I don't like the way that it was introduced, where it's like Steve Trevor's not here, but he's going to give me his energy so that I can fly because he loves planes. Like it
was weird.
It was weird. And again, for a movie that is a woman-focused superhero movie, it seems like everything that people talk a lot about Mary Sue's, like female characters who are able to do everything because,
just because
women, because we want to write women in a way that's more positive, but then you write them so positive that it makes them unbeatable or makes them into something that isn't realistic. That's a better way to say it than unbeatable. And I feel like in the first movie, Wonder Woman was powerful on her own accord. She, had the training from her Amazons, from Themyscira. She had love and compassion in her heart. And we got all of that in the first movie. This movie, everything happens to Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman doesn't really do shit herself except for whisper in Max Lord's ear at the end. It's just such a strange movie. I think that Wonder Woman should have been able to grow into flying in a more natural way for her, as opposed to Steve Trevor giving her this gift.
It could have been connected with him, right? Because he loved the air and all that stuff, and it could have been like, but it still feel more like I have it because of him, not I have it because it reminds me of him or because I. There could have been a connection with it, but it definitely feel like if Steve had not been there, she would have never flown.
It could have been that her love for him is so amazing and so strong that she, is in the clouds because she loves him, and then she learns how to fly. Something like that, but it's her own agency that does it, as opposed to Steve Trevor gave me a gift and now I can fly. Yeah. It was very strange.
I do gotta say, there was one thing that Amber pointed out when we were watching the movie that she really enjoyed, and once she pointed it out, I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Amber really enjoyed watching all of the male interactions with all the women. She was like, that is literally how people talk to us, because every man was a creep. Every man was like trying to get something from every woman, and the really cool thing I thought at the end is when she met the guy who was Steve Rogers. He turned out to be like, he was like a proper dude. It wasn't even like he was like a gentleman and he did all. No, he was just a normal guy, and she had a pleasant, normal human being interaction with him. That was a big contrast to all the interactions she had with everybody else in the movie, which Amber pointed out. That was kind of a nice little message in there, in the giant mess that this was.
I wish that, and I completely agree. I noticed that too in that moment. I actually enjoy her moment speaking to fake Steve Trevor more than all of her moments with Steve Trevor in the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that was a better moment. But I wish that the movie had just channeled into all of those creepy guys more, not to show creepy guys more, but to show women, including Wonder Woman and Barbara, being able to stand their own against them in a way that wasn't detrimental to them. And also, I feel like anytime those two characters tried to stand up or do something, it then was shown as being something detrimental.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was gonna say, it was for me, it was a good way to show audiences how women are treated all the time, how they're spoken to all the time. If it felt if you watched the movie and you felt like, oh yeah, I felt like they were beating me over the head with that idea, It's because it's real. It's because it happens every day to a lot of women, all women. I think. I don't know. I'm not a girl. I just go by what Amber tells me. But
I wish there was a better transition from Barbara being a character who is beating up the creep that is making passes at her, doing more than making passes at her. He was like literally becoming physical with her. Deserved to be beat up. I wish there was a transition from that Barbara to the Barbara that then wants to serve Max Lord, because that was a weird turn for the character. And I understand that she was trying to protect him because she didn't want her wish to go away. But I wish that they had found a better through line for Barbara as a character that kept her being a strong woman on her own and not being subservient.
Yeah, because when she beat up that guy, I'm sure everybody else was like, "Yep, I'm with her." That guy was being a dick. But then we jumped to her being, now she's crazy, and so we didn't get that like transition into how she goes. She went from like, I am beating up guys because they're terrible to me, to I'm crazy cheetah woman, and I didn't. There was no follow through on that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I guess
that's how I feel about Wonder Woman.
This is Cinephila presents Disappointment 2021. If this is any indication of how the rest of the year is going to be.
In 2020.
Oh, this is 2020.
At least these are 2020 movies. Let's let them be part of the mess that was 2020. Hopefully, we can look forward to better. I will say that while Wonder Woman was a complete train wreck, if you still have not seen Birds of Prey, which also came out in 2020, far better movie as far as women superheroes. Harley Quinn, a very bitter, jaded, rogue type character, not necessarily a hero, but her character has a full arc, especially from Suicide Squad, how she was presented in Suicide Squad. Harley Quinn has a full arc that is amazing. And then the supporting cast in that movie, all of those women are powerful, awesome. The acting is great in it. The action is great in it for like a smaller superhero movie. Because superhero movies like Avengers Endgame, we hit the peak of superhero movies as far as epicness. It was nice for Birds of Prey to come back and give us like a street rumble type of movie where it's just like not characters trying to be epic. They're just awesome and badass and can kick ass. All of those women in that movie were great. Yep. So definitely check out Birds of Prey if you have not yet, which is also on HBO Max.
P. Brusky asked which two, back to the Wonder Woman conversation, I didn't get to see. I'm trying to answer your question, but I don't know which two you're referring.
Oh, I think they're asking which two to Reed H. Cooper, who said the two biggest movies of 2020 which are Soul and Wonder Woman.
Soul and Wonder Woman.
I wouldn't personally say they're the two biggest movies of the year, but they were the big Christmas Day releases and were big deals that people anticipated throughout the entire year, and both were kind of a letdown in their own way.
Well, yeah. We'll see what that brings us for the rest of the year. Okay, well, I think we'll wrap it up there. We appreciate you guys joining us. Do you have any recommendations?
I do, because I've actually been watching a lot of stuff, but I have to pull up.
Okay,
y'all, I'm in a different web browser today, so I have to pull up my stuff.
I have. Reed Cooper says he has a recommendation. I'm gonna recommend something that I don't even know if it's good. I'm just gonna recommend it because I'm excited about it. Tomorrow, the release of Star Wars: The High Republic starts. So there's a couple of books and comic books that are going to start coming out in the next couple of months. But tomorrow's the kickoff event, or the kickoff of the whole thing. And there's going to be a couple of things. I pre-ordered the book, which is The Light of the Jedi, I think it's called. I'm running off the high of the Mandalorian Star Wars thing, so I'm really hoping that this is also good. I'm kind of excited because because it's new Star Wars. We're getting something we don't know anything about. It's brand new, whole new. It's 200 years before the Skywalker saga. We're going to explore different things, so I'm excited to see something new, and I'm hoping that it actually turns out good.
That sounds cool.
And Reed Cooper says, Cobra Kai, Season 3, Episode 5. All the feels, nostalgia done right. Is that the Charles Schulbach?
people have been talking about Cobra Kai.
I've seen the
Which
first
is
season
on
and I liked
Netflix
it a
now.
lot.
A lot of people have been raving about that show. I still have not watched it. I finally started watching What We Do in Shadows, the
Oh.
show, on Hulu, which is great. We're having a lot of fun with that. But that is not my recommendation. I mean, if you want to watch it, watch it. It is worth a
No,
watch.
don't watch it until he officially recommends it.
But but my recommendation is actually, I hate that I'm doing it, but I'm going to recommend something that's streaming on Amazon Prime. Steve McQueen's Small Axe series of films. It's 5 films that all follow different accounts in Black Europe, London, Britain. They're all like historical moments within the history of the black experience there in London. So there's Mangrove, which is about the Mangrove bar club that was a real place. There's like some legal things going on there. There is Lovers Rock, which was my favorite of the 5 movies. All takes place in one evening at a house party, and it just follows the black experience through that. Red, White, and Blue, which stars John Boyega as a guy who becomes first in town. And you know how I feel about black cops, and yet I'm still recommending this. So trust it has the social commentary to go with it. And Alex Wheatle is the 4th movie, which follows a black author. And then Education is the 5th movie, and it follows the black experience in the school system and how the school system fails a lot of people of color. So all 5 of those movies, Steve McQueen directed in 2020. 3 of them were during the film festival, but all 5 of them have now been put onto Amazon as part of the Small Axe series, and they're all worth watching. Some are better than others, but all 5 of them are worth watching.
Cool.
Yep.
So do that. Also, my shameful pleasure, The Bachelor starts tonight. If you guys are, if anybody's into that.
We saw a commercial for it.
I'm going straight home right now to have dinner and watch The Bachelor premiere.
It's a black bachelor, isn't it?
It's a black bachelor, and last and the Bachelorette turned out to be a black and Mexican bachelorette. So they're working
cool.
on. They're working. She wasn't originally. She wasn't, because they had another girl, and this girl screwed up the whole season. So she left, and they brought in the new one. So it's not like they planned it. It's just who was around and available. But I mean, good for her.
Blackchiller.
The Blackchiller. So, they're working on it. They're working on the representation. But yeah. Well, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. So, thank you so much for joining us, and we will cinephile you later.
Cinephile you later.